Ladies and gentlemen, Overwatch is a game with a lot of depth, and as such, unless you main a specific hero and have been playing it for a long time, you probably don't know all the advanced tips and concepts for that hero. So in this video, we're going to be covering 9 advanced hero tips and concepts to help you get more impact in your games. If you want to become overpowered, broken even, get raged at by your enemies because you're frankly just too good, then I got the perfect opportunity for you. GameLeap.com is 50% off in the links down below. You will never find an opportunity quite like this. Do yourself a favor, go check it out, and I'll see you. Now, before we jump into the first advanced tip, which is going to be about Genji, you need to be thinking about these tips and applying them in your games. It's not enough to simply watch these tips and never use them. Think about these tips actively and look to apply them in the next game of ranks you play right away, and I guarantee you it will become that much closer to be integrated into your overall playstyle. Now back to Genji, the advanced hero tip that I have for you is specifically about animation cancels on Genji. Now there's 2 huge animation cancels. Now the first one is the reflect dash cancel, and it's an extremely powerful tactic, especially as you climb the ranks on Genji, and the McCrees, Hanzos, and Widows are going to be far better. The thing is, often enemies are going to try to bait out reflect. They're not going to shoot your reflect very often or use their cooldown such as a flashbang into your reflect. Now as Genji, you have several options when you go up against the enemy in a 1v1, and there's also things that you can do incredibly fast to still win matchups instantly, even if you don't get that perfect scenario where you reflect a headshot or reflect a flashbang right into a McCree. So what you want to do is first put pressure on them with a right click. You put pressure on them with a right click, and then you instantly go into a reflect. This puts pressure on them to shut you down, and then you're reflecting and they're incentivized to do damage into your reflect. Now something that you need to understand is after your reflect has gone on at the very beginning, you can quickly identify whether or not the reflect was successful or not. A McCree will either use flash or bait it or try to set up a flash above or below you. A Widow will shoot you, a Hanzo will shoot you, but there's 2 things you could do. Of course you could run away, but what you can also do is instantly animation cancel your reflect with the dash into a 180 right click melee. Now doing this is going to take some practice, but the idea is you basically only identify whether or not the reflect is going to work, and then you instantly cancel it. So whether it worked or not, you're still continuing the combo, and you can win matchups instantly based on speed and reaction time. Now moving on to character number 2, we're going to talk about Tracer, and this one has to do with everything to do with her melee and her blinks. So keep in mind that her blink is exactly 7.5 meters. That's something that you need to practice, that spatial awareness to know how far you're blinking, because there's actually 2 types of blinks that you can really incorporate, and it's the blink at someone and melee them, or 180 blink and melee them. So the 180 blink is actually going to hit people quite a bit closer than the 7.5 meters, and the 180 is going to hit people slightly farther away, so you have some wiggle room in that capacity. Of course, Tracer wants to bob and weave crouch spam to dodge fire when they're dueling somebody, trying to get them into that small amount of health total where they can easily blink in, hit the melee, recall, and if the enemy is still alive, they get the full clear black and they can easily finish them off, or they already died to the melee. This is a tactic that you heavily need to practice, and I would highly suggest you do so. Try to finish off a giant amount of your kills with melee, because that blink melee is burst damage out of nowhere with Tracer. On top of this, as an additional tip, keep in mind that the melee has a lingering hitbox, so you can technically melee and blink and still hit someone at the end of your blink. It's a very weird interaction, but it can also be useful for several other things, like if you 180 blinked behind an enemy, but you're not perfectly behind him, you can actually melee and swing your camera and still connect with the damage. Now moving on to character number 3, we have McCree. And the advanced tip that I want to give to you is actually the 180 flash headshot. Now I know that this is kind of a little bit of a niche trick, but you'd be surprised how powerful this is if you specifically practice it. The thing is, enemies hardly expect you to be able to 180 and hit a headshot. You need to practice 180ing while looking at the ground, flashing the ground, and then instantly flicking up and headshotting. It's a repetitive motion that you can get down if you practice it again and again and again. Now, yes, you could technically turn around, flashbang, and fan the hammer, but often the problem with the 180 flash headshot is usually you only do this when enemies are trying to hit you from behind. They're trying to surprise you, and you probably don't have a full clip, so you need to hit that headshot. I know it's difficult, but it's something that can get a lot of value. Let me give you this perfect example of a time where you can use this to actually just roll enemies. How many times have you high nooned and a Doomfist or a Genji or a Tracer has come up behind you and killed you? The second you hear them, you specifically stay in your high noon as a bait, you instantly cancel the high noon, instantly 180 flash into the headshot. That is the way you could shut them down without them realizing. It is something that you could specifically try for if you practice. Now moving on to character number 4, we're going to talk about Lucio Amp. So the really important takeaway with Lucio is that speed boost is his most important aspect, and it's really powerful because it gets you from one place to the next faster. That means quicker rotations, less possible spam damage, more rapid velocity and damage onto the enemy. The problem that happens with Lucio with speed boost specifically is players will often use speed boost to get up to a choke, and then they won't have speed boost to get through it. Speed needs to be used with intent to route you from one natural cover to the next, or to be used to engage or disengage from enemies. A second aspect about speed boost is it's so important and powerful to give your team that through all my VOD reviews and analysis of Overwatch League pros, Lucios will almost never, and I mean never, do a full heal on the Lucio Amp. At the very least, it is usually a half fade, and sometimes only the very beginning of it will actually be heals. You do this because only outside the most obscure scenarios will you want heals over speed, and if you even need heals at all. So really keep this in mind, and most likely how much you're amping heals right now is probably far too much. Now moving on to character number 5, this is Zarya. And for the advanced tip for Zarya, I had to dig a little deep, but this is the tactic that I've seen a couple of times, specifically on maps like King's Row. But if you alternate fire straight up in the air, and then as the blast hits the ground, you simultaneously alternate fire the ground and jump, you actually rocket jump yourself even higher than a regular right-click jump, which can get you on top of things like the little telephone box and on top of the high ground, even with low energy. So it's a pretty interesting tactic if you need to get that verticality in a pinch, or if you're trying to route to a specific thing during a quick rotation. Now, as an additional tip for Zarya in the advanced section, Zarya can actually win a 1v1 versus any squishy as long as she has high energy and a bubble, even if she's at very low health. The thing about Zarya is if you start using preliminary damage and you have your bubble to survive any sort of CC, stun, flash, or damage that the enemy has, you can use your preliminary damage plus your right-click melee to burst down targets incredibly easy. And on top of that, in Gravitons, do the exact same melee rotation tactic I talked about on Tracer, where you use the lingering hitbox to actually melee every single person inside of the grav by rotating your camera as you melee. So moving on to character number 6, we're going to talk about Hanzo, and specifically we're going to talk about flanking with Sonic Arrow. So when you flank on Hanzo, you definitely want to start off the flank with a Sonic Arrow. You don't want to use it before you're going to shoot the enemy. You want your first shot to be that Sonic Arrow, because keep in mind, if you use it early, enemies are going to be aware of your presence, and they're going to start juking you, and you don't get that first free flank shot, which is one of the biggest reasons to flank on Hanzo in the first place, is when people aren't paying attention to you, they're incredibly easy to shoot. Now that being said, if the enemy is a heavy dive composition and you're on a flank, sometimes saving your Sonic is better, because if enemies come and pursue you, using your Sonic to claim the space around you and protect you from potential divers and turning the tables on things like Tracers, Dooms, and GENJI'S because you can see them through walls, that is the way you stay alive against dive composition. So if you're up against characters that can't dive you, of course you can leave off with the Sonic, because with your lunge and your wall climb, you typically can get away no matter what if they come and push you. But against divers that have high levels of mobility, sometimes you need to actually be able to turn the tables, and as such, you need to actually save your Sonic Arrow for when they pursue you. Now, as a second advanced tip, if you fully charge your arrow and look up and to the left, the Hanzo's head hitbox actually gets completely covered, which is an insane tip. Special thanks to streamer and YouTuber Argay. He's an insane Hanzo. Go check him out. He has found tons of Hanzo tips that no one else has found, so I would highly suggest you go check him out. Now, moving on to character number 7, we have Reinhardt, and an advanced tactic that is actually a huge mind game level tactic and a mechanic level tactic is the fact that you can actually animation cancel partial swings with your shield at any time. You start off the swing, and right when it comes around your right shoulder, you can actually shield up, cancel it instantly. This is a great tactic for baiting out enemy shatters because it's quick and cancels the swing, but it looks like you're gonna full commit to a swing. Now, what I would suggest if you really want to hard body an enemy Rein, the thing is, a Rein's gonna be paying attention to your habits and what you're doing. Throughout the course of the first few engages, commit to full swings. Do not reveal the animation cancel partial swing at any time. And then later on, when you know the enemy Rein has shatter and there's some sort of initiation, like you get nanoed or they get caught in a grab or anything like that, some sort of initiation where it seems like you would want to swing into them, that is when you whip out the animation cancel. Basically, you do not show your hand, and you specifically show the enemy Rein different strategies so that he tries to read your habits, and then you whip out this animation cancel and you block his shatter, you save the day, you counter shatter him, he's mentally boomed, and it's over for him at that point. It's just done. It's just done. You won. Moving on to character number 8, we have Zenyatta, and something really interesting about Zenyatta is actually when you full charge a right click, his head hitbox actually dips in a very, very obscure way, really, really low. Now, if you combine that with movement plus a crouch at the same time, your head hitbox literally goes like inside your body almost. Makes it really hard for enemy widows. If you're like doing a full volley against a widow, it's almost impossible for her to one-shot you. If you crouch and move to the side and full volley, it makes it very difficult for her to do so. So that's something I would definitely suggest. Now, as a second additional tip, I might get some heat for this, but you would actually be very surprised about how nuts Zenyatta is at flanking. He doesn't make any noise while he's walking, of course, because he's just floating. And if he fights any squishy, if he gets first blow on them, more than likely he can win the matchup incredibly easy. Because not only do enemies have to find him, but they have to pursue him and chase him, and he can just kill people really, really easily. In fact, he can one-shot people before they react at all. I can't tell you how many times I've actually spawn capped people on Zen because no one expects a Zen to be waiting for you near your spawn, charging a right click and one-shotting you when you're McCree walking out of spawn. It's something that they don't expect, but I think it's something that's actually underrated. Zen can be a secret DPS, especially in ranked. All that being said, I would leave Doomfist alone. Just stay the heck away from that guy. In fact, go back to spawn and switch off if they're on Doomfist. Now moving on to the 9th and final character on our list, we have Pharah. Now a tip that you might have heard, but I don't see enough people implementing is you always need to be rocket jumping in addition to your booster jump in order to get maximum height. Now I know that you're going to take a fair bit of damage from this, but hopefully that will get instantly healed up, and the extra height is very vital for the default strategy on Pharah, which is long distance spamming. It is something that you definitely need to do each and every time if you want to play Pharah. Now in general, the way to become a god tier Pharah is mastering the dive bomb close range strategy, because while Pharah can play from really far away, she's surprisingly lethal close range if you practice. I would highly suggest you take Pharah into a tried free-for-all lobby and practice dive bombing enemies, because you could specifically be right over their head, fall right on top of them, hit them with 2 rockets incredibly easy. And against Tracer in particular, or if your damage boosted, nanoed, or the target is discorded, Pharah can drop on a target, shoot them once directly and melee them, and they will die instantly. It's essentially a flying execution, extremely powerful, and you will be incredibly surprised how much more lethal you are if you master this tactic. While the default strategy of Pharah is a far away spammer, she can definitely win these close range matchups if she picks her engagements and she engages at the perfect time. If you've been waiting for the perfect opportunity to take your Overwatch gameplay to the next level, then I have the perfect deal for you. GameLeap.com is now 50% off. You heard me right, 50% off in the links down below. Don't miss out on this rare chance to surpass your peaks and limits in Overwatch, and I hope to see you there. Anyways, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if there's any other videos that you want to see, let me know in the comments down below. That's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Bills, and until next time.